Yeah, I remember one thing that we had in the very first meeting when we spoke was the distinction that came out about the law and the specific laws, right?
Yeah.
So we were trying to say that, well, there are many laws, statutory laws, and say rules or even judicial pronouncements, which needs analysis and so on. But also, how do we imagine the law, affects queer lives after, say,
Navtej, yeah.
Navtej, NALSA, and so on, right? So for me, what really stood out throughout the process is that idea of what is the law's relevance to the lives of LGBT persons, and not just what is the relevance of Hindu Marriage Act or
Yeah.
so and so, but the law itself, right? And one thing that came out for me in these 2 days is that you start with asking people what is bothering them, and then you try to address it through the law,
Yeah.
right? Otherwise, changes in the law really doesn't
Yeah.
serve any purpose. It's always like just trying to fix something for the sake of fixing it, or
Yeah.
just because this is not in compliance with NALSA, we are going to fix it. But what came out after these 2 days is that it's not just about mechanically, technically redrafting the laws, but it is to listen to the life of the people who are marginalized and facing discrimination, violence, and then tune the law in light of the precedents and adjust it, right? So if that is something that is my takeaway, I was also curious to hear what you guys thought were the primary issues that, say, the community is trying to grapple with, and do you imagine law to be an important tool to address these issues?
Yeah. So I think it's a combination of things. I think law is one part of it, and that's what we realized. Our big takeaway was that we keep on looking at the law as this answer to everything, which really it isn't. There's also a life of the law and how people interact with law in terms of legal authorities or enforcement and things like that. So it's a life of the law as well as the law that come together. We as lawyers wanted to focus on how law can itself be made inclusive, and that may be the first. That's a part of the larger piece, I think. But if you recognize it's only a part, overall inclusion would mean that you also make every other institution or law is enforced, so the life of the law inclusive. And for that to happen, you need to make the laws inclusive as well as those things inclusive. So something that we focused on this project were our 4 themes, which is violence, family, identity, and employment. And these themes also came from a manual. So a manual had some broader themes like healthcare, violence, identity, education, and those we had come up with after extensive consultations with the community. So Namrata said, we spoke to Danish, we spoke to other people who said that we need a way to negotiate the law right now. And when we realized these are the concerns that people are facing, we came up with those 4 themes, which 5, 6 themes, which we then consolidated for the purpose of this project. Also, in terms of legal frameworks, we realized that after Navtej and NALSA, there is now scope for challenging these cases. Because now you can't say that 377 exists and you can't do any other thing. That 377 is finally gone. And now there is scope to have this larger conversation where you can push for inclusion. So, which is when we thought that, okay, now that you can challenge these legislations, let's start a conversation there and consolidate into these 4 themes, that is violence, employment, family, identity, and then see where this conversation goes forward. And as I think Gautam also pointed out that, but it's just not the text of the law, it's also what people's experiences are, how they deal with this on an everyday basis, and how they need to be factored in the larger question of inclusion before we think about making it completely LGBT inclusive.